If we start from the basic postulates of military science, then victory is the achievement of the goal with minimal losses. Because military acquisitions, like any other, have their price. It can be adequate, or it can go beyond your budget. By late 2024, the Russian army advanced in Donetsk, with fighting now near Pokrovsk. Calculating seized territory is easy as public data shows 2,627 square kilometers of Ukraine was captured in 2024. This is about 10% of the area of the Donetsk region or 0.4% of the area of Ukraine. Whether this is a lot or little for a year of fighting, I leave it up to you to decide. The main thing is that we know what was bought. However, now we need to know what price was paid. In fact, the price paid for a given territory is not much more difficult to calculate than the territory itself. It will be enough to believe in the existence of such things as OSINT intelligence and geolocation. If for some reason you don't know what it is and how it works, I'll quickly get you up to speed. OSINT is intelligence based on open data. It is one of the basic tools of any intelligence. The process involves searching and analyzing public information, such as Telegram channels. Let's take the same Pokrovsk site as an example. Analysts are establishing which military units on both sides are responsible for this direction. Then they collect all the videos that they publish, and based on these videos, they calculate the losses in equipment, and also give a general assessment of the tactical situation. Geolocation ties video to a specific area. Not every video can be geolocated, but in principle, almost every video. Not all fights are filmed or published. However, the troops on both sides always publish positive things for themselves and almost immediately. Therefore, OSINT can be considered a fairly accurate tool that gives a general idea of the situation. I will use the data of OSINT analysts, which ones, I will leave in the description of the video, calculate the price that the Russian army paid for the captured Ukrainian territory. We will start our journey from the village of Krasnohorivka. The village is located 8 kilometers from the ATO line of 2015. Pokrovsk is 40 kilometers away. The village is 2 kilometers wide with a pre-war population of 500. On your screens are geolocated Russian equipment that was destroyed in the battles for this village. In total, there are 32 pieces, including 8 tanks. Estimating the cost of Russian and Soviet equipment is difficult, but it's at least $20 million of Russian taxpayer money. There is a video for each point. These two T-80 BVM tanks standing together were finished off by Ukrainian FPV drones. A video of 2 infantry fighting vehicles, easily geolocated to a Krasnohorivka street near a cemetery, shows a landing party fleeing and subsequently destroyed by a HIMARS missile. 8 tanks for a village, is it a lot or a little? We only know by comparison. 3 tanks were destroyed in Syria's Battle of Hashem. US airpower then defeated Assad's forces, backed by Russia's Wagner PMC. Georgian soldiers knocked out 4 tanks in the 2008 5-day war with Russia. So the village of Krasnohorivka was already more expensive than the victory over Georgia. You may ask, why are you sure that all this equipment is Russian? The answer to this question is also much simpler than it seems at first glance. Despite the fact that both armies use mainly Soviet equipment, even the Soviet equipment of Ukraine and Russia has differences. The most obvious is camouflage and culling. If we are talking about tanks, then these are models. Ukraine's main T-64 tank is not used by Russia, and Ukrainian T-72 T-80 tanks visually differ from Russian versions. The Russian army also uses post-Soviet equipment like the BMP-3M and T-90M tank. Videos usually show whose technique is depicted. Ukrainian columns are not moving from Russian positions and are not storming their own villages. Russian channels sometimes film their own destroyed convoys and claim they are Ukrainian, but usually delete the videos once the error is noticed. You can't hide anything from the internet, and you can't deceive it either. Most losses occur in fields between villages, not in the villages themselves. Here is a piece of land between Krasnohorivka and the next village called Stepove. It lies just behind the railway track. Only 2 fields, slightly over 2 kilometers, caused Russian troops immense difficulty. According to geolocation data, at least 89 pieces of military equipment worth more than $70 million found their end on this piece of land. I think the bold dot with the number 9 draws the most attention. I will gladly show you what lies behind it. There is no shortage of photos and videos of this patch. Ukrainian units simultaneously displayed the amount of Russian equipment in one frame. Most of the armored vehicles here are BTR-82A, the traditional equipment of the Russian mechanized infantry. There are 23 of them on the map. The T-72B3M in service since 2016 is the central tank. Its dynamic armored turret and fender protection are identical to the T-90M. Also, 2 invincible T-90M tanks are here. 70 million is a very conservative estimate. In principle, the cost of all this scrap metal can be estimated at 100 million, because the export price of only 2 T-90M tanks can be about 12 million evergreens. Not the most reasonable waste of money. Invest them in repairing the dilapidated homes of these poor residents. Putin banned them from watching YouTube and knowing where their money went. After all, everything here is fake, so they, in fact, have nothing left to do but write down appeals and wait for Putin to personally fix their huts.
Turning to our local authorities, we are constantly told that there is no program, no money, no housing.
Stepove is a tiny village, with only dozens of pre-war residents. It's just behind the railway track, which Russian troops have long tried to cross. We saw this on the previous map. Not everything fit there, so I included some burned equipment behind the track in this map. So, the amount of geolocation on your screens. This is nothing new. All the same absolute madness, 60 pieces. I estimate this list at a minimum of 35 million, more likely 50 million. Look at this mess, a real dump. We pay attention to the astronomical number of tanks, and there is also a T-90M here, standing in the very center of the village. Its export value definitely exceeds the cost of all houses in this village. And given the population of Stepove before the war, we understand that many more Russian soldiers died here than civilians lived here. We've counted nearly 200 military units between the 2 villages and a field. 46 tanks are twice as many as in the Second Russian-Chechen War. The total cost is more than $150 million. This money will suffice to pay the salaries of these road builders, who haven't been paid in a long time. Instead of money, Putin gave them 2 destroyed villages, but they still continue to demand salaries. Rascals!
We need funds for loans, food, and housing, but we receive nothing.
That's not all. Berdychi, a picturesque village, is less than a kilometer from Stepove. It is not much larger than Stepove. And here is the geolocation data. 37 pieces of equipment. Do you feel this? Not enough. Only the 3rd village, and you are already used to the heavy losses of the Russian army. Now the figure of $30 million does not seem particularly impressive to you, but this does not make it less in itself. $30 million is a lot of money. More than military aid to Ukraine from Ireland during the entire war. This is more than the military aid from Croatia in 2022. Europeans buying Russian gas and oil invest heavily in murder and destruction. There is no T-90M on the map, oddly enough, but there is a T-90A, also good. There is also a BMP-1U, Ukrainian armored vehicle, taken by Russians from the Georgian army, that is, it has returned home. Of the valuable here, BMP-3M, as many as 6 units. This machine is excellent, destroying it is always a small victory. Next, we will move slightly up the map towards Ocheretyne. Here we will take a look at the village itself, as well as 2 more tiny villages to the south of it. First, let's see how the Russian army got there. On your screen, a small section of the path along the same piece of railway track. Russian troops moved predictably and suffered expected losses. 34 pieces of equipment worth at least $15 million. The exact price is unknown, as the cost of Soviet-produced items is unpredictable. Nevertheless, there are also several modern samples here. From the railway we go east again and find ourselves in two very, very small villages of Solovyov and Novobarmutivka. And here we meet Putin's stability, 42 units of equipment worth at least $30 million and T-90M. Destroyed T-90MS surpassed pre-war production. I made a separate video about this. There is a very high-quality video from the 47th Brigade. All their videos are of high quality. It pictured destroying the 2022 Russian T-72B3M tank. And very close to him lies the already destroyed T-62M. It can be noticed if you look closely. And here is another beautiful video, just a little further down the road. Tank T-80BV Model 2022. For those who understand, these tanks clearly belong to the Russian army. But, of course, there will be those among you in any case who will say that these are all fakes. Before getting to the final point of our journey, namely the village of Ocheretyne, we will look back for a minute at the route we have already passed. We saw an area of only 17 to 20 kilometers. I did not choose the largest concentration of losses. On the map of Ukraine, there are places that can put these numbers to shame. I followed the Russian army's route without choosing specific villages. And we have counted a total of at least 291 units of military equipment, of which 67 are tanks. The minimum cost is $200 million. This is equivalent to financial assistance to Ukraine from Japan for the entire war. This is a lot of money. And even more lives were wasted for an absolutely useless conquest. The same amount of money, in theory, should be spent on the restoration of these villages at least to their pre-war level. In fact, 20 square kilometers cost the Russians $500 million. It would be good if they took this into account, rejoicing at another captured village in the Donbass. The battle for Ocheretyne was a tragic event for the Ukrainian army. I covered the retreat from Ocheretyne in a separate issue. But even here, in a super successful situation for itself, the Russian army still suffered heavy losses. Yes, in comparison they may not look impressive, but still, it's 20+ units. They simply cannot help but lose a lot of people even in a victorious battle. Terrible incompetence and unprofessionalism.